All right, y'all, go ahead on and buckle up them fake Louis belts, them fake Gucci belts, because today we got a good one. Today we got to talk about a Boston University student who tried to use ICE as his own personal DoorDash, except he didn't want them to deliver food. He wanted them to deliver deportations. And instead of that actually happening, what happened was this. He exposed himself as being the world's worst immigrant vigilante. I don't know how stupid can you be.
Zach Siegel is the president of the Boston University College Republicans. We talked to him in September after Charlie Kirk was killed. Siegel is now claiming on social media that he is the reason ICE showed up at an Alston car wash earlier this month and hauled off 9 employees. Siegel posting on X, "I've been calling ICE for months on end. This week they finally responded to my request to detain these criminals. As someone who lives in the neighborhood, I've seen how American jobs are being given away to those with no right to be here. Pump up the numbers."
It's frankly appalling to see somebody that's proud of destroying an entire family, an entire community. These people, all 9 of them, no criminal records at all, yet he's referring to them as criminals.
Todd Pomerleau is the attorney who represents the 9 detainees, 5 women and 4 men. He says Siegel, who was born in London and schooled in the UK, according to the BU Athletics website, certainly can exercise his First Amendment rights here in the U.S. But Pomerleau finds his arguments ironic.
He talked about how these jobs are being taken by 9 people working at a car wash. Well, he's taking up a college student seat who's from America by his same rationale.
The 9 workers were detained on the morning of November 4th. Pomerleau says many of them do hold legal status and valid work permits that they were never given a chance to produce.
They were grabbed and thrown in a van, never given any opportunity to explain who they were, where they're from.
Zach Siegel did not return our request for an interview or comment. The BU student is an intern for Republican candidate for governor Brian Shortsleeve, a strategist for the campaign, telling us tonight, "We don't answer for anyone else's social media but our own, especially not a volunteer intern." Brian has been clear that he supports enforcing our laws, including our immigration laws, and he supports due process.
Now hold on, this little boy been calling ICE for months, like ICE is AT&T customer service or something. "Hi, I would like to report a whole entire car wash." Now look, this the wildest part right here. Most of the dudes had documentation, but the problem is they got snatched up so fast, they never had a chance to get their W-2s. And listen, here's something most people don't even know. I hate to make this racial.
Cap.
But white immigrants actually overstay their visas on average longer and more often than Latino immigrants. And that's not my opinion. I'm not pulling it out my ass. That's Department of Homeland Security data. But ICE ain't showing up in Boston to raid the Irish pubs talking about everybody step away from the Guinness and the fish and chips. It's always black and brown folks.
So this guy right here is the one who called ICE on the Alston car wash in Massachusetts, which resulted in 9 people being detained and arrested. He said he was calling ICE for months because supposedly they were all criminals and stealing jobs from Americans. His name is Zach Siegel. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And I think he's a junior. I want everyone to remember him, because when things start changing, I want opportunities for him to also start changing. I want people to question if they even want to be around this guy. So remember his face. Zach Siegel.
He said, bro, remember his face. And honestly, yeah, because on the real, this like some cartoon villain behavior. Also, the math is math and not, because I'm calling ICE to protect American jobs. Sir, you not even American. Boy, your ass from across the pond. You eat blood sausage for breakfast with dry ass biscuits. Plus, how many American people aspire to wash cars for a living?
BU has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever. If you haven't seen this kid, he called ICE on a bunch of car wash employees. Based on what, you ask? Because how would a random BU student know the legal status of car wash employees? He didn't, because most of them were here legally. They had work permits, but he hates people of color. So, but anyway, here's the funny part. He's not American. This boy is from England, and he is here on a student visa. At least the car wash employees were here on work visas. He's just here on a student visa. He's no more American than they are. And I personally think it would be really funny if BU took another closer look at that visa and maybe decided that he wasn't right for their school.
Now hold up, wait a minute. Like old girl from the first Friday, Craig old lady. How you gonna tell me that this man is here on a student visa, but some kind of way he calling ICE on people who here on a work visa? Personally, to me, that would be like sneaking into the movie theater and then calling the cops on people that actually bought their tickets. Makes no sense. Fun fact, Boston University is like 20% international students. They recruit globally. So by his own logic, technically he stole a seat from an American. But of course, nobody ever really mean that when they say that about themselves. They talking about people of darker complexion.
Let's talk about who ICE is not raiding right now. ICE and Border Patrol are in Charlotte, Durham, and Raleigh, North Carolina, literally 30 minutes from where I pastor. But here's what you're not seeing. We're not seeing raids on Irish pubs checking visas. We're not seeing sweeps through European neighborhoods. We're not seeing checkpoints outside of Polish churches. We're not seeing Canadian families being terrorized. We're also not seeing British immigrants being asked about their documentation status. I want to call this for what it actually is: racism. The Trump administration isn't at all interested in all immigrants. They're interested in brown and black immigrants, period. European immigrants overstay their visas at similar or higher rates than immigrants from Latin America. But let's be honest, when was the last time we saw ICE conducting military-style raids in predominantly white immigrant communities? When's the last time we heard about a German family being detained during a traffic stop? When's the last time Swedish immigrants were too afraid to take their children to school? We haven't heard or seen any of this because this was never about immigration. It was always about race. I'm a pastor, I'm a public servant. I'm telling you, we need to pay attention to who is being targeted and who is being ignored. Because when we learn that, it tells us everything we need to know about what's actually motivating these operations. This isn't about law enforcement. This is about racial profiling with federal badges. And every elected official, state level, local level, who supports this, they know exactly what they're supporting. You can dress it up all you want in border security language, but we see it for what it really is. I assure you, the voters are going to remember this in November of 2026. This is not about protecting communities. This is about deciding which communities matter. I'm Pastor G. I'm not going to be quiet while this is happening, while our communities are at risk.
Now, I ain't gonna lie, the pastor was preaching, and he's right. Because if immigration enforcement was spread it out evenly, half the Irish pubs in Boston would be empty right now. But we all know ICE ain't pulling visas on people that work at these European bakeries. Ain't no German grandma sweating bullets at these Oktoberfest celebrations. ICE is like, we enforce the law equally, but all the people being arrested all look the same. That's not law enforcement. That's kind of like pattern recognition with a little racism sprinkled on top.
Not only is it a popular city and thus gets a lot of attention for how racist it is, it's racist in a way that's like demographically unique. Because Boston is a majority white city, for 44%-ish white, but it's also over 20% black. And most cities that are that majority white or more white are far less black. If you look at Portland, Seattle, Denver, San Diego, other maybe like northern Midwest cities, they're very white, probably more white than Boston or as white as Boston, and a lot less black. On the East Coast, all the cities are generally more black. So like Philly and Baltimore, their largest demographic is black. Washington, D.C. New York City proper has the same black percentage as Boston. It's 21%-ish, but it's less white, right? So there's this unique thing that happens in Boston. It's more white than the cities in the area, the other cities in that general area of the country, and it's more black than all the other cities that would otherwise be like really white. And that tension of the city being white but also pretty black is why I think people feel it so strongly when they go there. You're not going to feel the same level of racial tension or hear about the same level of racial tension in cities that just don't have a lot of black people. Like there's there's not a history of tension there to sort of like glean from the culture around you. So when people think about Boston, they think about it as if it were like Denver or Seattle or Portland, but it's not. It's systemically, institutionally still segregated. And that is decades and decades, if not centuries in the making. It is by design. Everybody thinks about Boston as this, like, as the, you know, rich white people strolling around on the waterfront for a reason. You know, black people have been segregated out of that space and always have been. And it is like, had this unique ability to keep it that way. It is very, someone pointed out it's like a very classist city. And I think that's true, especially with the like elitist educational thing that goes on there. And also just, again, the elitism of like, we're this liberal, progressive place that doesn't have to do any of the actual work to be liberal and progressive institutionally across the city. And so it's not, the like actual demographics of the city are not represented in the way that New York and Philly and Baltimore and DC and these other places are. Like, you get a sense of who lives in that city because of what comes out of it, the culture that blossoms out of it. All of those cities are systemically, institutionally racist because they're in the United States. But their minority cultures and their black cultures are allowed to thrive in a way that Boston has managed to really suppress. And they don't just suppress the people there, everybody who comes in and visits feels it. That's why a lot of people in the comments will say, like, I could just like feel it. Like, it's like not always overt, although often it is, of course. But like, there is this just sense that it's just like something's not right. And the fact that that gets erased from what people think about when they think about Boston is on purpose. That's what the city has designed itself to be. Where it's located in the country, there are different expectations for cities in that place than if you go to the Pacific Northwest or Southern California, right? So yeah, that's part of the cognitive dissonance of Boston, is that it's probably less white than you think demographically and more black, but the actual output of the city is this elitist, white, classist, ruling class vibe that has persisted throughout other cities, making far bigger progress, far better progress. And that attitude and that elitism seeps into the city. The white people in Boston get to be the culture creators in Boston, and that's a huge fucking problem. That's why people experience what they experience when they visit there.
Now listen, if you ever been to Boston, you know exactly what she's talking about. Now here's something that most people don't realize. Boston is one of the most segregated major cities in America. Harvard literally did a study showing that black families in Boston have the lowest median wealth out of all U.S. major cities. Boston didn't accidentally become the white progressive elite capital. They engineered that. Zach ain't even invent racism. He just downloaded the DLC pack.
What's up, y'all? I'm Marcus. I'm a black Bostonian. Spent all my life in either Dorchester, Roxbury, or Hyde Park, and I have some things to say about this video. The age-old question, is Boston a racist city? The short answer is yes, Boston is a racist city. Everybody knows that. Everybody here knows that. But where things get confusing is that I think that people are associating Boston's type of racist with the legacy in which Boston is known for. Which, to be fair, is also warranted because of how the city has treated previous black players, one of them being Bill Russell. The busing era and a lot of the modern day celebrities such as Mark Wahlberg participating in such acts, you can also look those up, also contribute to the city's image as a whole, since those celebrities are also deemed as the poster child for the city. That being said, regardless, Boston and New England as a whole has some of the most passionate, the craziest, wild fans, in my opinion, that if you ever go to a Red Sox game, that's how I feel about Boston fans. This is also why your legacy is very important. Because although black Bostonians in the modern era have not experienced things that black Bostonians have experienced in the 60s and 70s, that image is still there because of those things. Now, my experiences will also be different than other black Bostonians. One, because I'm a firstborn immigrant, and two, because I am also a light-skinned man. Light skin privilege is a big thing when it comes to racism, and it can create different experiences from black person to black person. I personally have had little to no experiences with direct racism, meaning verbal, physical acts of racism. But again, those experiences will be different from person to person. This also parallels why black Bostonians don't like to be from Boston. Celebrities have a lot of power in their words, and people listen to them and they take them for what they are. When LeBron James says that Boston is a racist city, that is what Boston will be to a lot of people that will never come here. There is a sense of embarrassment that comes with being a black Bostonian for a lot of people, because whenever you step outside the city and tell somebody that you're from Boston, their first words are, there's black people in Boston, and is Boston racist? And they'll be from like Alabama all of a sudden want to know what racism looks like. Let me know if you agree, like, share, comment. I love you guys. Thank you.
Now, look, I got to call a spade a spade. I really could appreciate bro's honesty for the simple fact being a black Bostonian got to feel like being the only black person at like a Harvard brunch or something. And he mentioned something important. Personally, I feel like light skin privilege does kind of scope your perspective on things and change your experience. Two black people in the same city don't necessarily experience the same version of blackness. And he also touched on something real. Black folks from Boston get embarrassed by telling other people that they from Boston, because the only thing that the country ever hears about Boston is racist, racism, more racist, more racism, Irish pubs, Dunkin' Donuts, and more racism.
Why do you hate Boston?
Because they racist. That's why. They will say anything, and it's fine. Fuck, it's my life. I mean, I've been dealing with it my whole life. I don't mind it. Like, I hear it. Like, if I hear somebody like close by, I check them real quick. I move on to the game. Whatever they're gonna say, whatever they want to say. They might throw something on you. I mean, I got a beer thrown on me leaving the game. You know, like, Boston.
It's the only place in the NBA in America you go and they have like shirts that say like "fuck LeBron."
Yeah, it was like a LBJ t-shirt. I believe they probably sold it at a team shop.
No, they sold it outside the arena.
No, they sold it at the team shop. I'm still had something to do with that shit.
You know a place racist whenever NBA players, millionaires, are getting beers thrown on them like they're a freshman at a frat party. But this is what I want y'all to take away from this whole story. People like Zach don't just appear out of nowhere. They grow out of environments that tell them you are the default and everybody else is the problem. But when you look at the real facts, the real data, and the real history, you will quickly realize who the real problem is. Anyway, Boston, do better. Zach, take your lame ass back across the pond. And Ice, stop trying to play God with a clipboard. And Zach, if you watching this video, bro, I hope you enjoy your beans and toast and your blood sausage and the dry biscuits. All right, guys, that's it for this video. If you like what I was putting down, you already know what to do. Hit the sub button.